Yeah, thanks for that reply. This question came about mainly because of residents' concerns recently that hunting has been quite regular in Middleton Park. As you've probably seen in the news, back in November, 2 swans were shot. Really quite disgusting scenes, really. Were shot dead in the park. And since then, we've seen regular bodies of rabbits and stuff laid at the entrance of the park. So it is becoming a bit regular. So it wasn't so much thrown at you today as a criticism. It was more about what we can do together. So my question is...
A question, please. Sorry, a question.
Yeah, so my question is, do you think there's more we can do to fund more Safer Leeds support? Because there's Safer Leeds cameras in the park, what we could access if we had more...
I think you've asked your question, yeah. Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment as written down there. I will keep it brief. You can pretty much read it. But I've just felt there was a glaring omission of disabled drivers. Constantly I get people coming to me and talking about how inaccessible for disabled drivers Leeds is. The lack of disabled parking, for example, is always brought up in community meetings. So I felt today was the ideal opportunity to add it onto the Conservatives' proposal today, and hopefully everyone will agree that it needs to be addressed. Thanks.
To the next white paper on sports clubs. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, if everyone's okay, I'd like to pay tribute to Martin Thornton, who passed away recently, who was a grassroots football referee for over 40 years. Martin was a real gent of the game, who had the pleasure of meeting on many occasions, managing my local amateur team, Middleton Park FC. He was always fair, supportive and passionate about grassroots sport, and he knew what it meant to players about stepping on that field every weekend. So my proposal today is a simple one, really, that this council agrees that, subject to legal considerations, community sports clubs in Leeds should be granted the right to lease their sports grounds owned by the local authority on a long-term lease at a peppercorn rent, giving clubs long-term security of tenure, which is necessary to grow. Many people in here and across Leeds will know that for the last 20-odd years, I've dedicated lots of my time to grassroots sport, creating Middleton Park Football Club 20 years ago, until recently stepping off their committee last year. I started with 40 to 45 teenagers taking part in regular games on a Sunday, and the club now hosts 350 players and run by 70 volunteers and a committee of 10 people. So 20 years on, the club plays on the same pitches across the Middleton area on a year-to-year LCC tenancy, with little or no security of tenure. With annual increase in their hire fees and the pitches they need, and no increase in income. So today's proposal, what it would mean for clubs, is that after there's debate on the detail, but for example, if in my head I'm thinking 10 years a club's been renting year to year, why not give them that lease? So what will the lease do? So the lease will allow them to access funding that the Leeds City Council can't. For example, in terms of Football Foundation have some amazing funds and do some great work. And if a club leased the ground, they might be able to build a clubhouse, for example, a changing room block, maybe even floodlight their pitch so they can play midweek. There's loads of opportunities, and I'm looking at rugby authorities. They also offer lots of different funding pots for similar sort of things. But again, you need security of tenure to get those fees, those monies into your club. It helps clubs grow because if they've got a lease, they want to make it pay, so they'll create more teams to make it pay. We'll get more people active. The council will save money because the clubs will be maintaining the grounds and we won't have to, so we can use those resources elsewhere. Economic benefits have just been outlined there. So, for example, at the moment we're taking £156,000 a year, just over, in football, rugby and cricket, year higher. I'd suggest that we would save that. We would also get income from it, but we would have resources extra there spare what we could use elsewhere to offset that. And so, as well, like football clubs, for example, and rugby clubs and cricket clubs, all have that element of social interaction. It's probably the best way you're ever going to integrate people in society. Everyone loves sport, from every background. You go to any sports club and you see everyone from the local area taking part, joining together. And for me, it's about those community connections and how important those clubs are to us. So we need to show that them clubs, actually, we've got your back. For a prime example of where it worked, if you just look at what Stuart Ailey and the team have done at Wortley FC, absolutely amazing what facilities they've got. We give them a lease, and within years they've got a clubhouse on its way, they've got the pitches done, they've got railings around the pitches. It's an absolutely amazing facility down there. And I accept there's loads to iron out on when we'll do it, who would get it, how it would work. But all I'm asking is for a commitment for us to look at the different options we can support clubs to grow, and also nurture those social benefits, as I've said earlier, about improving those links of community cohesion. For example, we played rugby union when we were kids at the Leeds Corinthians Rugby Club. How massive those social links are is demonstrated through my own family.
Can you finish your sentence, please, Councillor?
Where my own brother got an apprenticeship from a guy in a bar. So those are the community links we need to build more on. Thank you. Thank you. I suppose I'll start by just going through a few of the points raised and trying to put those at ease. So, Councillor Rafiq mentioned supporting clubs to develop. I'd argue this is what I'm doing. And if you really want to support clubs to develop, this is the ideal opportunity. And I've never denied that you haven't brought any funding in. Middleton Park Football Club, the club I've run for many years up until last year, also was benefit of that. So we've had the pitches done and everything, which has been great. But what I'm saying is there can be more. And that's all I'm saying there. Talking about the council will lose money, I disagree. The clubs will be paying a lease rent. They'll also be removing resources, so we'll have resources to reallocate. I'd also argue that in the long term, we'd be saving the NHS money because we'd have more people playing sports. We'd have improved mental health because more people can access sports. And we'd have a much more active community. We'd have less loneliness within our communities because people don't have to play sport. If you've got a sports club, they can just come and watch and be part of it. There's so many more factors to a football, rugby, cricket club or even bowls, like grass bowls. It's social. There's so much to it. It's not just about the games played. And I admit not all clubs will want to take responsibility of the ground. Of course not. Some will, some won't. And we talk about how long will the leases be? 25 years? Yeah, I think that sounds great. But maybe we could put a stipulation in there. You've got to hire it on a year-to-year basis for 10 years to prove that you can, afford the ground. Or you could maybe even say you have to have 300 members before we'll even entertain it. There's loads of stipulations that could be put in place to make sure that it's going to the right clubs. And we'd have more community buildings for people to access. Councillor Burke mentioned there is access to funding. She's correct, there is access to funding, but what I'm saying is this will access to more funding and different streams of funding. Because have you tried getting funding for facilities when you don't own the land? It's almost impossible. But if you want to increase the facilities, and you lease the land, you've got opportunities to do that, especially through the Football Foundation. So take a look at the Football Foundation's website. It's all clear there. It says you need a lease, you need to own the ground. And again, like you mentioned about the one-year lease for the local club, which you mentioned, it's a one-year lease. It's not a long-term peppercorn lease, so we're not doing it. And it was 10 grand, so it's not a cheap lease. So, yeah, again, everyone said, oh, it's not saving money. I disagree. I really think it will. Let's do a review of it. And Councillor Pryor mentioned a bit about swimming, etc. The swimming facilities are great. I don't see them getting leased by a swimming club, but, you know, you never know. My own son is in the diving team for Leeds, so I know how important those facilities are too. And I really think it's great that we protect them as a city, and we should continue to do so. But helping these clubs will help more disadvantaged people play, because the clubs will want to expand to make the most of their grounds. And I see it as giving, we could even put that in the lease. We want you to have disability sport, we want you to have women's sport, we want you to have all sports for all. And I think that'd be a great thing to do. It'll give clubs space to do more stuff. Like, for example, Tingley Athletic have got a ground.
Finish your sentence, please,
and they have a boot swap. Currently, Middleton Park FC has a boot swap, and it's in a container, and it's really messy because there isn't the space. So they're the kind of things that we can do. Can you
finish, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
Dixon and Councillor Cohen have agreed to swap turns. I'll call on Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. When I saw this come up, I was a bit like Mark, really. I was a bit like, what do I know about this conflict? And the answer, quite honestly, is very little. I didn't stand for council to try and interfere with international affairs. I stood for council to try and make my community better. So am I standing here now making my community better by talking about this subject? I don't know. But what I do know is what I've seen on TV, bodies piling up, people dying. None of us want that, no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on. Nobody wants to see people dying. And, you know, us calling for a ceasefire, we can do that. We can do that. But I kind of feel like, a bit like Miss World calling for world peace, and it's never going to happen. You know, it's kind of empty virtue signalling to me. And whilst I'd love for them to get round the table, realistically, every one of us in here knows that's not going to happen. Until Israel are not going to back down until the hostages are released. Hamas, I don't think, are going to back down until they've got whatever it is they want. Again, like I say, I don't know loads about the conflict. But it always comes down to one thing, and people are dying. We need to stop people dying. So whoever is in a position to put those people around a table, I say do it, and do it quick, before more and more people die. Thank you.